item number 11 on the agenda.
Okay. Annual performance report. Tonight we're going to have Natalie Martinez, our Director of Accountability and Assessment. She's going to conduct a public hearing and report on the 2017-18 data as listed in the TAPR, and I'll let her share with you what that is.
Good evening, Board and Mr. Chambers. Tonight we will review our 2017-2018 academic data from the Texas Academic Performance Report, which we frequently call the TAPR report. That is the largest part of the annual performance report. This does also serve as a public hearing, so at the end I will open up the floor to questions from the audience as well. The full report can be found on our Alief website under Departments and Accountability. You'll be able to navigate through the different campuses' TAPR reports along with their performance objectives and their summative evaluations as well. 2017-18 was a difficult year for Alief and many surrounding area districts. Harvey hit our area and Alief was closed for 10 days. Once we reopened, we welcomed children back and we quickly began meeting not only their basic needs but their academic needs as well. The state of Texas did decide to move forward with state assessment but allowed a Harvey provision for schools and districts who were closed more than 10 or more days. If a campus would have received an improvement required label, instead they received a not rated Harvey provision label. Districts with schools in this position also received the not rated Harvey provision. You'll see that Alief had 35 schools that met standard. Remember, they won't move to the A through F rating until this current year. And we had 6 schools that were not rated Harvey provision. Because of that, our district also received the not rated Harvey provision, but we did receive our numeric grade and all the data that goes with it, so I share with you as well that we received a 77. Remember, districts were rated with the A through F system where campuses won't be until this current year. Before we get into all the data, I want to review 3 things very quickly with you. The first is the accountability system. And you've been exposed to this a few times, but just to refresh your memory, student achievement is domain 1. It is all about the performance on STAR. It also includes the CCMR, or the College Career Military Ready Indicators. Remember, the performance on STAR has the language of approaches, meets, and masters, and we'll review that very quickly in a minute as well. Domain 2 is all about school progress. There are 2 parts to Domain 2. The first part is growth. Remember, in the growth areas, we don't look at whether students passed or failed. We looked at did they grow from one year to the next. In 2B, it is about relative performance. They take our Domain 1 scores relative to other schools with similar economically disadvantaged populations. Domain 3 is really used to meet the federal requirements. This is the report where we start seeing all of our demographic information. We did have percentages attached to that. Remember, campuses are allowed to use the highest of Domain 1, 2A, or 2B to count as 70% of their rating, and then 30% on the closing the gap. The second review is really just where do we assess. You can see that we test all of our content areas, but not necessarily in every grade level. Remember, in high school, it is about the course that they take, not necessarily the grade they are in. You'll also notice the 10 subpopulations in yellow. Those have not changed. We still review our data by all of these subpops. There have been some new indicators that rolled around in accountability. These are not necessarily found in the TAPR reports, but they are in the accountability reports. So it gives us another view on how to disaggregate our data. Hopefully you remember this third review, we looked at our stick figures. We ran that through with the board. Hopefully that was an easy way to understand that all kids matter. Even if kids are already passing, our job is to still focus on their needs and push them to those master levels. In the end, the AMM average stands for approaches, meets, and masters averaged together. So you'll see in that example, we took our percent approaches, percent meets, and percent masters. We added them and divided by 3 to get a 57 as an example. that approaches means and master average is found throughout this entire accountability system. So now that your brain is ready, let's dig into the TAPER academic data. We like to start with the demographic information, which is in the TAPER report. You'll notice all of the state demographics side by side with our Alief demographics to show a quick comparison, because we do like to compare ourselves to the state. You'll notice that our ECD pop is significantly higher than the state. It is, however, lower than last year. If you remember, we moved to an online system, and we found that some parents were having difficulties with that system. This year, we had a push at the beginning of the year for the paper versions as well, so hopefully we meet the needs of the children, because they're actually, as you heard Dee say, turning in the form. And so we should see that number go back up. You'll also see a difference in our ELL learners. That percentage, again, significantly higher than the state level. It also increased 1 percentage point from the prior year as well. Knowing that we are different from the state, we still like to compare our numbers. Here are Alief ISD numbers compared to state when we look at our AMM averages. In reading, for example, remember reading is from grades 3 to English 2. You'll see that our AMM average was a 39 compared to the state at a 46. You'll see all of our content AMM averages there, and on average we're about 8 points below the state, so we know that there's work to be done. It's in progress right now as well. Another perspective that we bring to the table, just to help you build your perspectives on how we're performing, we look at Houston area districts as well. I want to start with demographics again, because I find that to be important to build the whole picture of what we're talking about. Enrollment, of course, you see HISD with biggest numbers, Cy-Fair following behind them, but really we want to focus into mobility, ELL, and ECD in these districts. When we look at mobility, you'll notice that Alief has the highest in this small group of districts that surround us, followed by Houston ISD and then Spring ISD as well. With our ELL population, you'll notice again, Alief has the highest ELL population for this sample group of districts, followed by Aldine and Spring Branch. And last, with our ECD pop, Aldine was at the top. Alief fell in second place with that one, and then followed by Pasadena. When we look at academics with that lens, I'll give you the 3 different sub-pops rank ordered here. Your AMM averages are not going to change, right? That is what it is, but I rank ordered it for you just to give you that perspective. So you'll see in this case, we re-ranked all of our districts based on mobility. Remember, Alief had the highest mobility. In general terms, the trends that we would see is the higher mobility you have, the lower your AMM averages. We did have the highest mobility, but we do not have the lowest scores. So you'll see those AMMs shift, but they're not going to change. When we look at the different pops, here's your English language learners. Again, you'll find that we re-ranked these so the districts are in a different order. But again, general trend would say higher the ELL pop, lower your AMM average, and that's just not the case when we look at our scores. And same holds true when we look at our economically disadvantaged. In addition to academic data, TAPER also reports on our CCMR data, which is college, career, military ready. Here again are the same districts for comparison. The calculation of CCMR is new, but most of the pieces have been in place for quite some time. The calculation is a percent of annual graduates who meet one of the CCMR indicators. You'll see that 42% of our annual grads met at least one CCMR indicator. Underneath that, however, I give you these bullets where it's giving you individual percentages for those CCMR indicators. So for example, 32% of Alief students met both the ELA and the math TSI criteria. That TSI includes SAT, ACT, and TSI. But the key word there is and. They have to meet both ELA and math. But you'll see our percentages down there as well. This report really has caused lots of discussion, not only in our district, but at the state level as well. Certifications, for example, is one of the hot topics where not all of the certifications were included on the approved list. So although our students were getting certified, if the certification was not on the state approved list, they weren't counted here. The state approved list had 77, roughly, certifications, where now they've heard us. They're talking about 200 certifications. So we know that they're listening. We know that there are some adjustments to be done to the CCMR report. We're making our own adjustments internally here at the district, but we're also being very vocal at the state level to let them know how we feel and what's going on in our district. Growth measurement is a part of the TAPER report as well, so I'll show you math and reading just ranked differently. Remember, growth is just about growing from one year to the next, not necessarily about passing. But you see when we rank order by math, we're in the top 5, which feels really good. When we go to reading, we do dip down, but you'll see that there's a tight race between districts there. Very similar performance. The TAPER also reports on our demographic data. And we've had lots of questions on demographic data. Domain 3 is where you want to go if you're looking at information in that way. So you'll see here, I pulled one piece of Domain 3, which was our Domain 1 score divided out into subpopulations. So our domain now is broken down into all of those subpops on the left-hand side. Now you'll also notice that each subpop has a different target that was set by baseline data from the 2017 school year. So for example, when I look at domain 1, it's all kids put together. If I throw domain 1 into domain 3, I then can separate it out by subpopulation. For the African American population, which is first on our list, the target is 36 for that domain 1 score. Alief was hitting at a 40. Remember, your domain 1 score is your approaches, meets, and masters. It's also your CCMR, your graduation rate, all combined for a district level. So you'll see the green check marks where we are meeting those standards, and we certainly look at that information to see where we can make some adjustments. This is the shortened version of the TAPER report and the annual performance report. Remember, the entire report is already loaded into the Alief webpage. You'll see a link for district and then a link for each level with all campuses included in that report. Board, I'll ask you for questions first. I'll ask it of you first.
So, Rob, Mr. Moreno, any questions? So no questions at this time.
Perfect. Okay. I'll take questions from the audience.
I have a question.
Sure.
Heard a lot being talked about mobility. My concern is that it was highlighted in your presentation. The lady that spoke earlier said that it was ranked number 5 in the concerns as far as the academic performances. So I'm wondering why we continue to highlight that, especially when the district goes by a pacing guide. At the beginning of the school year, you brought the top percentage of students from each campus here, and each one of them, every last one of them, had a high mobility rate. So my concern is that we're not focusing on a proper area. We're continuing to highlight high mobility when we've shown that that is actually a minimal problem compared to, I think the young lady said, absenteeism of the students and the teachers. And then we missed the board discussed professional development being given during the middle of the day, that being a problem, and then it was kind of whitewashed by saying the professional development was given in the afternoons and on the weekends. well, that's still a situation. If you're working your teachers to death throughout the week, and then you have them going on professional development after working on the weekends, yeah, they're going to take some time off during the week. So I think that we're not addressing the elephant in the room, and you all keep trying to put the earnest on mobility. If I go and eat McDonald's on the south side of Houston, I can go on the north side of Houston, and the French fries are going to taste the same because they cook them the same way. That's the same way that our school structure is supposed to be with this pacing guide. So focusing on mobility, I think, is a crutch and not addressing the elephant in the room.
It is one indicator that we highlighted today. This is actually the first year that I put mobility into the report, and the reason I did that was because the state put continuously enrolled and non-continuously enrolled in our accountability realm. So because we've had talks about continuously enrolled, I wanted to bring that to the table as well. But we also include ELL, which is a huge population. We also include ECD, which is a huge population. I welcome conversations about the taper. It's one of my favorite reports, so I would love to have more conversations with you and anybody who would like to dig deeper. Now, the professional development piece is not in the taper report. That's a separate and aside, but it does contribute to our members, I agree. It's something that we're looking at centrally and something that we're already discussing with principals to address.
And mobility is an issue. It's not a crutch. I don't know about French fries and how they taste from one McDonald's to another, but I know when students leave one campus and move to another campus, that does have an impact on their ability. Is it the only impact? No. Is it an excuse? No.
So is the pacing guide ineffective?
I'm sorry?
Is doing the pacing guide ineffective? Is that what you're saying? That doing the pacing guide is...
No, pacing guides are important, very important, but they don't overcome the social, emotional, and academic problems that some children have when they're uprooted from a school and moved to another school, whether it's in the same district or from Alief to another school district. When a second grader gets moved, they don't know they're moving from one Alief school to another Alief school. They just know they just moved from their teacher, their friends, wherever they may be living, and they know it's different and it's new. Some students react differently, but many of these students who are coming from either economically disadvantaged backgrounds or they don't speak the English language very well, it is a tremendous impact. Is it the only impact? Absolutely not. No one has ever said it is, but it is an issue. And so to characterize it as a crutch.
Rank number 5. All I'm saying is
it's number 5.
Before the fifth thing, but you seem to keep focusing on number 5.
No, we focus on economic development, economic disadvantage, ELL, all of them. You're hearing what you want to hear. We're dealing with all of them.
What item number 5 are you talking about?
He's talking about the risk-based factors.
Risk.
And I don't know if it was number 5. I just know she
It
only
was.
gave
I
us the
listened
top
to
2. She only said the top 2. She didn't give the top 5. So.
Ma'am, did you say it was number 5? She's gone.
She's young. She's young. Nevertheless, it's not a crutch. And I want anyone that's listening to this to understand, it is not a crutch. It's a real thing that happens, and it has an impact.
1 through 4 has a greater impact, obviously. That's what the
Some
report
kids, it
states.
has an impact on them.
Well, Ron, I have another question that you'd like to add, or any other, this is still open to the public to ask questions.
I'm just responding to the superintendent. He's having a dialogue with me, so I'm going back.
And as board president, I'm bringing it back to order, to the agenda. And it was a question, and I welcome your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Natalie?
Okay, thank you very
Nice
much.
three times, so thank you so very much for your reporting and your responses. We'll continue to hear more because we know accountability is a big deal for the board. And I agree with this discussion about mobility, just like Ms. Loves and everything else, all new terms. The most difficult part about all of this is what the state holds us accountable to do. They kind of tie our hands on what we can and cannot do. So that's why I think now, at this time, we're throwing everything out there to say, what is the problem, what is the problem? And I agree. French fries from one McDonald's in another city to another is the same. But mobility, you know, some people are impacted by it, some people are not. Some people have great support systems to get through it. And the truth is, some do not. So,
Yes.
thank you for sharing.
Thank you.